Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to showcase my last recent build, or the project that I'm currently working on. And believe it or not, it's the OG Bleed Bow Gladiator. Yes, you heard me right, the Bleed Bow Gladiator. I thought it deserves a return. The last time I played it was I think 2 years ago or so, right? I think Ritual League or something like that was pretty much the last time I actually touched it. And I had a lot of fun and success in the past with this build. And there were a lot of changes to bleed. There were modifiers removed, like the 60% chance to deal 100% more damage with bleeding and stuff like that got removed. They got replaced with a bit worse stuff, but overall I think Bleed Bow, we all gonna agree, is not meta anymore, right? The thing is, I think it got overtaken by the Corrupting Fever Gladiator, which is an excellent build. I personally have never played Corrupting Fever, so the first question that you might have, yo MB, what is better, Corrupting Fever versus Bleed Bow Gladiator? I don't know. You know, it's just like I said, I want to go old school and go with a Bleed Bow Gladiator, with Snipe, with the Asylum, with Puncture, literally old school stuff, and see how this build performs in today's standards. So we leveled this character up yesterday. I think yesterday we had a pretty long leveling stream actually. Stopped with mapping, and today was actually the first day of actually playing the character and trying to assemble the gear. And obviously, what I did, I don't have bad gear, okay? It's not terrible gear, but still, the majority is life resistance, life, or at least stats overall, you know, I don't know, just basic gear that is damage over time based, physical damage based. I got myself a bow with bleeding you inflict deal damage faster, and spammed some essences on it to get a halfway decent bleed bow, or at least a physical bow for it, right? And the things are getting together basically, right? But as of right now, I'm hilariously overcapped on resistance, just because I said, you know what, life resistance just get me capped and I want to start mapping, right? I'm not ailment immune. I do not have my purity of ailments elements yet, what I have over here, right? I just don't have the mana, the funds to actually reserve it right now. So there is a lot of things that need to be done in this build, but for the early showcase, for the first show you guys what I'm working on, we're gonna run a Crimson Temple tier 16 map over here that I'm currently just farming. I revamped my Atlas passive tree a little bit. This is basically a tree, I don't know, it's just basic stuff, you know. We have Stream of Consciousness, whatever, because I'm too lazy to use scarabs and stuff. Then we have a bunch of shrines and strong boxes and essences and yeah, pretty much basic stuff, right? I just put away all the Legion because I'm not farming Legion entirely. Because what I want to do with this, I'm actually playing all the League mechanics, because I'm currently starting to farm some of the challenges, right? And I need to do Heist, Blight, Expedition, I don't know, Ambush, Abyss, Essence. So I'm gonna do step by step, and every time probably I'm done with a challenge, then I'm probably gonna just block it off to then just continuously grind for challenges. Good. Other than that, let's go and go with the build. So basically, Bleed Bow Gladiator, we are having the bleed explosions, we are having arena challenger charges, making the build quite fast, outmatch and outlast, as well as other things that I'm going to talk over later. But basically, we have Molten Shell, we have Determination Grace, so we have armor and evasion scaling. My single target is basically my Snipe, which comes from the Exile. I'm going to talk in a little bit why that is. And then we use Split Arrow as my clearing skill, and we have a Delirium Mirror as well. That's going to be fun. But yeah, it's basically, I do not have GMP, okay? Split Arrow comes with a hilarious amount of projectiles on its own, okay? And what I'm using here is Chain to let the projectiles bounce towards each enemy, because it's not about the hit damage that I'm doing. I just want to make sure that my arrows are actually hitting the target and inflicting the bleed, right? And I think for the overall mapping, as of right now, it's totally fine. And for the occasions where we actually have, what do you say, some incredible, powerful monsters, for example, like essences with, what is it, Arch Nemesis modifiers, or even if you start using up, using the altars and everything, that I currently not want to do, because character is still in progress, right? And the altars are making stuff hilarious. So let's see an essence monster over here. So basically, I think I have to talk about that later, how bleed and stuff scales and how do you actually get decent amount of damage out of it with like monsters are moving and stuff like that. You know, it's a little bit different when it comes to that. But for the pure map showcase, I think it's enough if I just tell you guys that split arrow is my clearing skill and puncture is my single target ability. But yeah, I think a lot of people do remember these kind of builds. And I think they are still, actually, from what I have right now, I'm like happy with the build for now. Because I know that I want to go a lot deeper and I'm still missing a lot of stuff. I'm having mana issues, you know, there's like a lot of min-max things, especially when it comes to the damage aspect, missing. And I think it performs reasonably well as of right now. So, strong boxes. Dude, these Exiles are actually pretty freaking tanky. Like, back in the days, I think they buffed the Exiles this league or something. But usually, normally you don't even see an Exile because they die so fast. Yes, they do good damage, but usually they have like so low HP that you just off-screen them and they're just literally gone, right? Let's do the expedition here. What is it? Where's the start here? Attack speed, I guess that's fine. More speed, more speed. I guess this is fine. More attack speed. Fire damage, I guess. Damn, dude, these monsters are gonna be fast. Let's put down some ensnaring arrows. So once the monster have ensnares on them, they act like as if they were moving. Therefore, my bleed is doing quite some more damage. But I think I'm reasonably tanky here, and even can use a Vile Molten Shell if I feel like I'm maybe dying. Who knows? But overall, I think it's a feels good build. So, what are the plans for this build, you may be wondering? Like, is this a map clearer? Is it a bossing character? What is the intention of this build? And personally, I think that this build is going to be an overall map bruiser build. Or not really map, let's say an all-content bruiser build. I believe that I can get the damage high enough to deal even with uber bosses at some point, thanks to the Asylum and Snipe. But I also want to have a speedy mapper thanks to my Challenger charges, a good clearing thanks to Split Arrow, reasonably tanky to counter with all these like insane Arch Nemesis monsters that we have over here, right? I mean, we know that they are going to get nerfed, right? But I still think that the Arch Nemesis monsters, they can have some ridiculous modifiers, and that can be very, very rippy. Like, sometimes you cannot even compare bosses with those Arch Nemesis dudes, right? Even like Metamorphs. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm finding an uber pinnacle boss when I'm trying to kill a Metamorph, right? Because they're so tanky, and they just randomly one-shot you. So I think having a decently tanky build is a very good approach in this league. But that also means more tankiness equals less damage, right? For the most cases of characters. Because you have to, like, find the middle ground. Where do you go? I personally think, as of right now, the build is getting too tanky with too low damage. But we're gonna see later on, once I'm established the gear that I want to have for the build, and then trying out some of the harder content, to where the journey is going, right? Because this is just like this is just the start of the build, basically, right? And as of right now, I don't really have any problems. Neither do I think I have damage problems, nor do I think my speed is lacking and my tankiness, but the build is not done, and we have to throw it against the hard content of the game to actually see if we're dying, if we have low damage, if whatever is missing, right? We're gonna figure that out, and then build the character accordingly, I would say. But yeah, map is almost done, but you see, it's a super chill build, man. You have your Split Arrow with Chain, and this shit bounces left and right, and it's just like, you know, you don't even have to like focus on aiming on something, unless you play with the Asylum with a Snipe. Good. I would say let's go over the gear real quick, and I think the main point here is the Asylum helmet. First of all, I say I personally never wanted to play Asylum because I feel it's a very clunky playstyle, right? And I still have this opinion up to this day after mapping a day with Asylum. I think Asylum is a shit helmet. I'm just gonna say how it is. It feels clunky. But the problem with Asylum is it gives you so much damage that it would actually be stupid to not use it. And to be fair, how often do we use the Asylum Helmet? How often do we use Snipe as an ability? Basically, maybe for map bosses, but I see myself once I have better gear, maybe not even using it, or getting more attack speed so it doesn't feel that clunky. So what is Asylum doing essentially? Asylum grants you a level 20 Snipe skill. Snipe is the one that you see over here. It's basically converting your attack skill that you have over here, which in my case is Puncture, into a channeling skill. So I hold down my right click, which is Snipe, and you see on the buff bar here, it stacks up to 6 stacks, right? So it basically channels a massive attack. And what this channel does, it gives you actually 165% more damage with hits per stage and 120% more damage with ailments per stage. With that means if I have 6 stages, what I basically do when I channel this up, and then I multiply, I have 6 stages multiplied by 120, means I'm getting 720% more damage with ailments. And Puncture is probably the best skill to inflict bleeds, and it also has a way longer bleed. So my Puncture, even though I'm having faster bleeds on my bow and everywhere on my tree, my Puncture still has a duration of 12.32 seconds. That means if you get one nice Puncture off with Snipe, you know, for the next 12 seconds, you're gonna have some ridiculous damage output, and it's going to get even better. So, but this is basically this thing about Snipe, right? It adds this clunkiness, but you get so much damage out of it that it would be actually a crime to not play it. Even though I say it's clunky, but you don't use it that much. So 90% or 95% of the time you're just going with your split arrow for your clearing skill, and you just have a good time, especially with Gladiator, with the bleed explosions. Clearing is massive, but there are occasions where you actually want to just snipe down an essence monster and just let it bleed while you're just trying to dodge this like 10,000 different abilities. Good. Let's go over the gear a little bit. As I said, my first idea was to just go with a Citadel bow. Citadel bow has the highest damage potential in an Elder version to get this. I think it's like up to 60% more damage with bleedings from these weapons and stuff. But in the end of the day, I got this bow, which is a Thicket bow. Thicket bow is not really a high DPS bow, but it is the fastest bow. And why do I actually do that? Why would I actually not take a Citadel bow? Well, the reason has 2 factors, and they are pretty simply explained. First of all, there is not many bows with the bleeding inflict deals 35% faster implicit, and there was no Citadel bow, which is the first thing. But I still bought the Thicket bow because the attack speed is like bases around like my channeling skill, right? So the more attack speed I have, the faster I'll be able to get the 6 stages of Snipe, making it less clunky, right? For example, if I put in my old bow here, you're gonna see I probably need like, yeah, about 2 seconds to get 6 stages. If I put in a Thicket bow, you're gonna see that it probably only takes like 1.5 seconds or something, right? And I do not really have a lot of attack speed as of right now. There is no attack speed on my quiver, no attack speed on my rings, no attack speed on my gloves, no attack speed on... Oh, well, wait, there is 9 attack speed on my bow. I'm sorry, tier 5 attack speed as of right now. This bow is actually decent, I would say. There definitely has potential to be better at some point. But as you see, like, the more attack speed you have, even for a bleed build, it makes it feel less clunky. But attack speed itself does not really affect your bleed damage. Good. Then for the bow, as I said, I think we just went over that, right? But overall, you're either gonna go with the Elder bow with like bleed modifiers, or you want to just go with something like this and just... I personally did some essences of content. So this is an essence crafted bow, and I just spammed until I hit something decent. I actually got T2 Emperors with cold damage, and then I was lucky enough to annul off the cold damage. Now I can basically start crafting this thing, trying to even get some better, maybe Aceling or something. I think it's a pretty good base to start things off. And I have here Split Arrow, Vicious Projectile, Swift Affliction, Chain, Brutality, and Chance to Bleed support right now. I think even Maim is better, but I'm lacking Chance to Bleed, actually. So that's why I said like another 25 is actually fine. So it's a little bit less damage, but it's still good. For the chest, boots, gloves, everything else on the gear, and The path building of the current character is in the description below as always if you want to take a closer look at the gear that I'm running. What I'm trying to do is get T1 spell suppression on all of my items. On my chest, on my gloves, on my boots, on the tree. I want to actually get a 100% chance to suppress spell damage, which is essentially harder this league because the values got nerfed, okay? That means on a chest you could get up to, what was it, 32, 34% spell suppression, and the current T1 is 22%, I think. On the gloves, I think 22 or 24 even spell suppression was T1. Now the max roll is 14, okay? So you get a lot less, or probably like 60% of the actual value of spell suppression, which makes it a lot harder, but thanks to the mastery where you get like another 12% chance to spell suppression on your if you have boots, helmet, and gloves with evasion, this helps. And also the entire tree here is actually pretty nice when it comes to spell suppression. There is also a Watcher's Eye with Grace that gives you spell suppression, so I'm confident that I'm gonna reach at some point 100%. But overall, life resistance, life resistance, life resistance, life resistance, life resistance, whatever you can fit in, and then work from there. That's what I did right now. I'm like so overkill on resistance, I'm still not even sure if I want to run Purity of Elements because I do not have a damage aura yet, right? So I would say if I'm able to get ailment immunity with other parts of my gear, maybe some better boots with like ailment avoidance and the Searing Exarch implicit or whatever, and maybe the Grand Spectrums, then I might go just for Malevolence to have at least some form of damage, right? You can use Pride, you can use Herald of Purity. There are so many auras that you can use on a Pure Fist build, but as of right now, I went with Determination, Brace, Blood and Sand for the Challenger charges to swap between Blood and Sand stance, and the Vitality to have some form of good sustain against degen and stuff like that. Then Rislada's Coil is still, in my opinion, one of the best belts that you can get. But there is a trick about here. You increase the maximum damage, but you also lower your minimum damage, which means that you have a wider variety what you can hit, right? That means that you want to attack the target as often as possible. Don't be like, yo, let's get a snipe on and I know my bleed lasts 12 seconds, I'm just gonna chill for 12 seconds, right? No, you want to permanently shoot more and more punctures onto the target because the bleed is based on your base damage that you're inflicting, right? So let's say you have a 500 to 1000 damage that you are shooting, and basically the bleed from a 500 is definitely lower than a bleed from a 1000 hit, right? And what the belt actually does, it lowers your minimum but higher your maximum based on the roll. So you want to have a high roll on the more maximum but a low roll on the less minimum, right? So you're gonna get yourself down to like 350 to like 1500, just as an example. This is not the real values, but just to explain how this works, right? So now, yes, I can inflict a lower bleed, but I could also inflict a way higher bleed. So you want to permanently shoot your arrows to just try to get like a max roll on the bleed to really have like super nasty damage. And obviously something like a Headhunter, I think Headhunter is actually bad. I'm just thinking about, I remember playing a pure fist-based build last league, and I think there is an Arch Nemesis modifier that converts all of your damage, so you're not dealing any damage, because only physical damage can inflict bleeding. No chaos, no lightning, no fire, no nothing, right? And if you convert 100% of your physical into an element or something, right, or in chaos damage, you're not going to inflict any bleedings anymore. And I'm just remembering this while talking about it. So I think Headhunter is a no-go for those kind of builds. Unless they remove this mod, but Mageblood obviously is not even a question, right? But if you want to play an ethical version like I do here, or just because I don't have the currency to afford a Mageblood yet, Rislada's Call is definitely the top tier Fizz belt in my opinion. Maybe there is another thing that got revamped with uniques and stuff, but I think this is the way to go. Yeah, so let's talk about my skill tree. I'm running here large classes with Master Fundamentals and Battle Hardened, as well as Furious Assault. I'm not taking this yet. And then for my mediums, I'm going with Rend and Circling Oblivion to increase the duration of my ailments, which is also important, because I think a feels good moment for dot builds, whether it's Bleed, whether it's Ignite, whether it's Poison, whether it's like any kind of like dot build, right? You want to have a duration of about 4 to 5 seconds. Then it feels like a dot build, and that's kind of good. But what happens if you're actually, I'm actually going to write this down so you can follow this up, right? So I would say 4 to 5 seconds is good. you're not gonna get this for puncture, but we're talking about split arrow here, right? Because puncture has a base duration of 8 seconds from a bleed and not like basically, I think 4 seconds is natural, right? Let's assume you get 100% faster bleed, then your bleed will be like 2 to 3 seconds, right? And this feels actually weird. You attack a monster, it starts bleeding and instantly stops bleeding, right? Your DPS will be higher, but it just feels bad. And if you have things like increased duration, you don't want to have a bleed that lasts for 10 seconds either. As I say again, I'm not counting in puncture here. That means that your bleeds are just, you know, 10 seconds bleed is just garbage, right? And we are not talking about, oh, I have 100% faster bleed and this is what I can do, just stand next to the monster and permanently attack it. Then it would be the highest DPS possible, right? But this is not realistic, especially not in a mapping scenario. If you're shooting a split arrow and all the projectiles chain and pierce and fork and whatnot, whatever you go with the route, right? Then your bleeds fall off instantly and the mobs are still alive, right? You want to have this dot kind of feeling, right? So basically what you want to check is how long is your bleed duration, and then adjust things accordingly. So you want to add bleed duration but also faster bleeds to increase your DPS. Here's another thing that I want to talk about real quick is what is faster bleeds even doing? That means if one bleed does, let's say bleed deals 500k damage over 5 seconds. That means I'm dealing 100k DPS, right? That's 100k DPS. Because over 5 seconds, the total damage done is 500k. If I have now 20% faster bleed, then my bleed, just copy this one, my bleed deals 500k in 4 seconds, which then basically makes my, dude, I hope my calculations here is right, but hey, it's showcase, it's about, you know, learning the mechanics. That means I'm still dealing the same amount of damage per bleeding, but it higher my DPS because my bleed will fall off over after 4 seconds and not after 5. Still dealing the same total amount, but that results in a higher DPS. That means if I would have 100% faster bleed, then I would deal the same amount, right? If I would have like 100% faster bleed, that means I'm actually dealing 500k over 1 second, which means I have 500k DPS. But still, the total damage done per bleed is the same. But you still want to like have faster bleed to increase your DPS, but also want to increase your duration because a 1 second bleed just feels disgustingly bad. Unless you have a permanent uptime, then this is basically your best bet. So now we're gonna open my POB here, and you're gonna see, oh shit, he's actually dealing 35 million DPS with puncture. Wait, I need to actually put this for against bosses. So you're gonna say, holy shit, he's dealing 35 million DPS. This didn't look like 35 million, but it's not DPS, it is damage done, okay? And my bleed, my puncture bleed lasts for 12 seconds, okay? After 12.3 seconds, I have done 35 million damage. Okay, this is what it comes down to. Don't get fooled by this number. This is what we need. Bleed DPS, not total damage done per bleed. Because then it's super easy to get like super high, ridiculous numbers, right? This is the important thing. This bleed DPS over here. And if we go to calculations, let's see my split arrow. Split arrow for me currently has a bleed duration of, where is it? Bleed 5.74. So I want to check that I get more faster bleeds in. Because as I said, like 4 to 5 seconds is good. More than 5 is too much. Lower than 4, I wouldn't go either. This is just personal experience with not having a clunky build, okay? Because there will be people that comment like, yo, this is complete bullshit. Go for 300% faster bleed and then the timeless jewels and you're gonna have insane DPS. Yeah, you're gonna have insane DPS, but it feels super shit because your bleeds last half a second, right? And this is also another good showcase here what the duration is doing. You remember those assassin poison builds that said like, yo, my build has 100 million DPS or damage, not DPS, damage, right? And you open their POB and you're like, yo, 100 million damage, you know? I played the build, it doesn't feel like it. Then you check calculations and you see on their Viper Strike they have a poison duration of 28 seconds. That means, yes, you are dealing 100 million damage or DPS, whatever. If you're able to stick on a target for 28 seconds straight, and before 28 seconds you're not dealing 100 mil DPS, okay? Don't get fooled by bleed duration. poison duration and all that things, you know. If it's about 4, 5, 6 seconds poison duration, then it's valid. But most poison builds have way longer duration, especially when they play assassin. Good. So that's about the bleed thing. How do you scale bleed damage? Yeah, basically everything that is physical. Physical damage global, flat physical on your bow, physical damage over time multiplier, damage over time multiplier. Faster bleeds is basically just a DPS scaling, as I just explained. More damage, all these kind of sources. Good. What is the next part that I want to explain about the build? I personally, I don't want to make it too in-depth as of right now, because this should be a showcase video. This is a little bit of an explaining how things should work or how things are working. But since this character is far from being done, from reaching the point where I would like it to have, where I then could tell you guys, okay, this is the kind of state, this is how much damage I got out while keeping a reasonable amount of defense and speed and blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't want to tell you guys, yo, you need spell suppression on your gloves or something like that, right? Focus on the basics, try to get a good physical bow, try to get your res caps. I personally would say get Chaos Res Cap, definitely, because as of right now, I didn't care about Chaos Res at all, just because of the first time gearing this character. And now I have a full gear setup. Now I can start working on the gear, upgrading piece by piece accordingly on what I need. And Poison is definitely, or Chaos Resistance, you want to have at least 0 and better even capped, okay? So yeah, don't check my resistance, disgusting. Element immunity, stuff like that will be incorporated in the upcoming days once I made more currency, and then also like better items, because this actually sucks. Like some of my items are actually insane, but not everything. Good. I hope this was the first good idea of the current build that I'm playing. I hope you guys enjoy this old school build, and I hope that we can get it to a stage where it is a viable build and not like a meme build like it is right now, because literally, I think I'm like 1 out of 3 people playing Bleed Bow right now, and a lot of people on the chat when I was streaming the build were also like, "Yo, why are you playing a meme build? You know, is this viable? This build died like many leaks ago, right?" I don't believe so. I think it's still insane, or at least very, very good, and I hope that I can bring it to a point where I can basically just give you facts about why I think this is good, and you can see it then yourself. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.